Okay, it is 5 after. I believe we're still waiting for Josue. He RSVP'd yes, but we can go ahead and get started, and then when he joins, he can jump in the conversation. So we're going to do the usual format, names, pronouns, and the icebreaker question, which for today will be, if you could make a bargain with Acheron, what would you want? And I will go first. So my name is Jonathan, pronouns are he, him. And if I could make a bargain and get whatever I want, I think I would want eternal knowledge so I can know everything. But I do believe that that might be like a double-edged sword because as much as I want to know everything, I'm sure there are some things I would rather not know. So I'm sure that will be a power I would want to get rid of very quickly. But what about you guys?
I can go. My name's Michael. I use he, him pronouns. Um, it's been like a long week, so I kind of just want to be like peace or happiness. But I think I'd probably want to take a little bit more advantage and want some sort of like ability to like, I don't know, blend in or seem invisible or shapeshift maybe. But that's it.
I was thinking maybe beauty, like the male lead, but yeah, I'm not entirely sure about that one as well.
And we have a new guest as well, Arian. So if you could say your name and pronouns for him as well.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I forgot. Arian, any pronouns. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Savante. I use he, him pronouns. I missed the question. My audio cut out for a second. So I didn't hear what the question was.
The question was, if you could make a deal with Acheron and get whatever you wanted, what would you ask for?
Hmm. Um, I want to say knowledge because I think that will open up pathways for me to obtain more things in life, like money or wealth or success, things of that nature.
Nice. Okay, so I'll go ahead and ask the question. What did everyone think of this month's book, I Feed Her to the Beast and the Beast is Me by Jamison Shea?
I can go. My initial reaction is that it was very long. Um, but I did for the most part enjoy the story. Um, I really like the sort of like view into these like really competitive subcultures, which I think we got a little bit of when we read the one Light from Uncommon Stars, where they're like in classical music, and I feel like this is kind of similar. And of course, this one also has demons in it, like the last one did. Um, but yeah, I mean, like for the most part, I like it. There's some parts that I kind of like wasn't in love with, and I will say the first time I listened to the book, I could not even remember what Laura's name was until the second time I listened. I was like, oh, I literally went to the book and not remember the main character's name. Um, but yeah, those are some of my initial thoughts and notes.
Yeah, I think for me, I like how, in a sense, it's kind of realistic. Like I can absolutely see, someone in the world of like ballet or like even like the music industry or acting where it is very competitive, where not everyone gets the level of success that everyone else does. So like, yeah, what are you willing to sacrifice? And I'm sure some people probably would sacrifice, their soul for a successful career. Um, I think overall it wasn't necessarily my favorite book at points. I think it's just because I really wanted to like the main character, but I never really could get behind her because I felt like she was just too willing to sacrifice like people that she cared about and justified it in ways that to me were just unjustifiable.
I think the book was nice. I think Lord Daughter Quaked. I was able to root for her along the way. I think the book did kind of sag a little in the middle, but the romance subplot kind of saved it, which I liked. Uh, yeah,
I actually really enjoyed this book. It's one of my favorites we've read in a long time, but probably my favorite we read this year. Um, I related a lot to Laura, a lot of her motivations. I've been in a lot of these spaces that she's in, and have been treated unfairly, so the story definitely connects with me in that way. There were some parts in the middle, like I mentioned on Discord, that I wasn't the biggest fan of. I am not sure that we needed a romantic subplot. I didn't really feel it did much for the story outside of distracting us from the horror elements, which is what I would have wanted more of. But then again, I'm also not someone who thinks that every single novel I read needs to have romance. I'm actually okay if it doesn't. So my perspective there is a little bit different. But uh, yeah, and then I think my only one other critique of the story is it's set up fairly early on that many people would have benefited from Josephine's death, and Laura even makes a point to like list each of their names. I would have liked if she pursued those leads a bit more. She just immediately assumed it was Rosemarie, Coralie's mother, and even with that assumption, she never tried to figure out how exactly she's doing these things. Um, I thought that would have made parts of the story a lot more interesting, but that's just me. Okay, so we have a lot to get through today in terms of questions. So let's quickly go and give general thoughts on our four main characters, Lore, Coralie, Andor, and Acheron. Let's start with Lore. Any general thoughts on Lore?
I, I feel like her intentions in the beginning were well. Like I think yeah, the idea of her trying to have success so that she's noticed. You know, obviously being in a world in a field that's very discriminatory, and just being the outsider and wanting to, you know, obviously raise her stakes, but also uplifting Curly. I feel like that's admirable. Um, I think as time went along, then it kind of shifted to like, how much is this really for Curly versus just also just for you, or I don't know. Um, I feel like my opinion of her kind of swayed, and like I wasn't sure exactly what I was. Some of her decisions were kind of questionable for me. I'll say that.
Um, I think one of my big things, and I guess this is true for a couple of the characters, but I didn't always fully like understand sometimes why they were so like into the ballet. Like I understand like having committed all of that time, but um I'm not sure. I guess maybe I didn't get sometimes why some of them stayed there when it was like so grueling. It just didn't seem like the reward was really worth it, especially because it's like not permanent. It's pretty temporary and short lived, like in the scheme of things. No matter how high you ascend. Um, I don't as the book went on, yeah, some of the decisions and like this like romance thing with the guy in the labyrinth, I like wasn't so sure about, but um I don't know. I don't for whatever reason don't really have a lot of strong thoughts on lore, and I think I went to a sport, but I actually went through the book and like completely forgot what her name was. So I don't know, maybe that's bad on me, but um yeah, that's it for now.
Okay, so like I agree with Devante. I think she was trying to convince herself that her promotion was also for Coralie, when I think it was mainly just for her. She was just trying to convince herself that uh, to uh, make her deal with Adkaron more make more sense to her. Um, I think she did take things a bit too far when she crippled and broke the ballerina's leg and stuff, but I did love when she exercised her power to gain the upper hand as well. When it didn't like directly harm the person. Sure, send them away to New York. They could still have a career. But like, ooh, the leg really. Okay, let's take a step back. Yeah. Other than that, I really liked her ambition, her drive. Um, women in not STEM, but women in arts. Love it.
So Laura is actually my favorite character, of one of my like two favorite characters in the entire story. Again, relate to her a lot. But I really appreciate sort of the unconventional competitor. I think whenever we read books about people in competitions or in competitive fields, we always get the sort of imposter syndrome character who doesn't believe they deserve promotions, doesn't believe they deserve roles or to be in the company. Laura is the total opposite. She is like dead set that like I belong here and essentially none of you guys do. I'm better than all of you. You all know it, but you don't want to accept it because I'm black. And I agree with that, you know, because clearly she is the most talented dancer, and it's proven time and time again when she does dance. Um, hmm. so yeah, I just love Laura altogether. Am not totally sure if I think her motivations really were ever to get Coralie in the company. I think that was probably something she was going to do long term, but that was obviously not her short term goal there at all. Um, so I'm curious if the story would have ended differently. Would Coralie have joined the company? Hmm. So I guess that's a good place to transition into general thoughts about Coralie.
I yeah, it took me a while to actually even have thoughts about her. Um, I feel like she was. I question whether or not she was really ever truly her friend. Um, her being Laura, just because like I feel like for her this was always like, okay, well, I'm gonna help the outsider because this makes me look better. It makes me look like I'm actually a good person. Whereas sorry, hopefully you guys can hear me. She didn't have like the false sense of like, okay, well, I'm going to try to uplift, my friend the same way that Laura did. And I feel like the fact that she was like lurking in the shadows the whole time, um, it's it's kind of comical in the sense of like, it actually caught me off guard when Ashley was revealed to be her and not her mom. And maybe I just didn't think she had like the intellect or ability to do it. And I think it's just because Laura was also very naive about her being able to do it as well. Um, so yeah, those are some of my thoughts about her.
I will say that I actually kind of appreciated the scheming, and I don't like, or lurking in the shadows. I think you said, Devontae, but I was entertained by that part. But yeah, I agree that some of her motivations were a little bit more selfish, or just didn't quite make as much sense to me sometimes. But that's it. The scheming I really did appreciate, but that's all.
Okay. I hated her, which is good, I guess. But I really like the complicated dynamic between Laura and Coralie. It's so confusing sometimes to be a girl, girl, girl. I don't think she was entirely affected by her deity, like Laura said. I mean, Laura is still Laura. It's just that you know, her essence, her hunger, her drive was just amplified. So I think it was always there for Laura. And so Coralie is still Coralie. And they painted her out to be sympathetic, but honestly, well, at the start, but honestly, I could never really, oh no, what a poor girl. I could never really sympathize for her. Um, yeah, I, if I was friends with Coralie, I would probably have the same type of dynamic with her, with like Lore did. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. I really liked a lot of the points that Devonte brought up. I have a question about that later on, so we'll get there at some point. But uh, I also didn't like Coralie. I don't think you're supposed to like her. From the second that we meet her, I knew she was like this phony, fake friend. Um, so yeah. And there wasn't really much of her in the story, but I do like the comparisons between these close ballerinas fighting for the same spot. I really liked Corley's presence for that, but outside of her, that I couldn't like that character. So now let's talk about Andor. General thoughts on Andor.
I hate to ask, which one was Andor? Was this the one that was boyfriends with Josephine, or was this someone that was ugly that did the shape shifting? Because I feel like the fact that I even have to ask that is not necessarily a good sign.
Andor was the boy that Laura had a love connection with, the demon boy.
Okay. Okay. Um, so yeah, my thoughts about him was I definitely appreciate the support that he gave her. I think at some point he almost died. Like he basically almost took a bullet for her, um, which I definitely appreciate. Um, but beyond that, I don't think I have many thoughts about him. I think he just kind of played a role of the love interest.
One thing that I liked about Ender was that I don't think without him we would have seen Lore start like reaching for more or like pushing her power. I think that um, it seemed to me like some of that came from seeing him and what he had like crafted for himself in terms of deals. So that was kind of cool, I think. And I really like, this is not really related to his character at all, but I really like the just when I was going through the story, the aesthetic of him in like his little labyrinth garden just felt very nice and dark. And, I don't know, but that's it for now.
Yeah, Andor for me was a bit of a I hate to use the term useless. But I do believe he was a bit of a useless character. I think he mainly existed to be a part of the love subplot, which again I wasn't the biggest fan of. I think it slowed down the book in the middle too much for my taste. Um, but I can appreciate in a way the relationship that he and Laura have. My one gripe with it, though, is I'm worried at what point is Laura's relationship with Andor going to mimic her relationship with Coralie? Um, because I'm noticing a lot of very similar patterns, and it feels almost as if Laura is becoming Coralie and Andor is becoming Laura in that dynamic. Um, so I'm curious just how long they will be able to last. And also, I don't know, I found their relationship to be a little interesting. Lore and Andor kind of give me the impression of like this she's the kind of girlfriend that you would see walking her boyfriend on a leash. Like, because it was very much like, you are my puppy dog, you do what I say, and he would say yes, ma'am. So I'm a little curious, like, what are we doing with that in a young adult novel? But to each their own. Okay, and our final character, Acheron, the Blood River. What were our uh, initial thoughts on Acheron?
I feel like Acheron should have been performing because it seems like ballet wouldn't be happening. But beyond that, I don't really have any. I don't know that I really thought of Acheron too much as a character. I guess I envision like more of just like a setting in some of these specific scenarios. But I mean, there are like actual voices and conversations, so um, maybe I need to like rethink that a little bit.
Yeah, I don't remember if there was a explanation in terms of what his motivations are. So like when people are fed to him, like does it mean he gets free, or is it kind of just about spreading his power so that he can expand and grow? I wasn't sure, or at least I don't remember, what was said about that. But I do like the way that I feel like the people that he feeds and like the things that he gives them are really just an extension of who the people truly already are. Like I feel like Laura was already very ambitious, so of course he just makes her even more. Curly obviously was already like, and well, he didn't give her her powers, but um, I guess in general sense of like the deities in the book, kind of just giving them an extension of who they are. So making Crowley even more of a backstabber that she already was. Um, one in beauty, and they're already, you know, well, I don't know if she was actually already beautiful, but again, just trying to make them more of who they already are. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Did you have any thoughts, Arian? Hmm. Well, yeah, Acheron for me was also a bit of a confusing character. I know that the Blood River Acheron does stem from Greek mythology, so I was kind of curious, are we going to get any more tie-ins from Greek mythology to this story? Because both Acheron and actually Lethe, the White River, stem from Greek mythology. So yeah. And then I know Acheron translates, I believe, to River of Woes or River of Sorrow. So I think Acheron feeds on people when they're at their darkest times, they're at their lowest, um, which is why I believe that he chose Lore when she was obviously having a very, very hard night. Same thing with Keturah and with Josephine and the other characters. I'm not totally sure how they got there, but I would imagine a very similar thing. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on that, Arian? I believe you may have stepped out for a moment when I asked the question.
Oh, it's about Acheron, right? I agree that I didn't really think of him as a character. It was He was more like a background concept, I guess. Um, yeah, when Lore was like, "Oh, you're supposed to give me this power, but you're actually weak because you got beaten like a billion times by Coralie." Uh, yeah, I just thought that was funny. But yeah, no thoughts, not much.
Okay. Well, let's get into the book discussion then. My first question is, how much knowledge of the ballet did you have going into this book, and do you think this book gave you a comprehensive understanding of it by the end?
Um, I'll say that I only have as much knowledge as we get from like big pop culture things. Even though I did ballet as a child, I could not tell you anything about it. But um, I don't know if I would say that I see this book as like a reference for what ballet is really like. I definitely think there are things that I learned or that I knew happened but don't really think about that I put into like a little bit bigger perspective. Just some of the stuff like having the really intense emotional toll it takes to do this kind of thing, like having to practice every day, having to like really be putting your body through intense physical pain every single day, and then like still never being like good enough or perfect sometimes seems really intense. And like I know that's a thing, I'm aware of that, but definitely reinforced from the story for me. And the weird financial piece of like having to sometimes pay for a lot of this stuff all the time, or having to like constantly be buying shoes every day or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Michael. I think I guess, first introduction to ballet was like the movie Black Swan. And I think looking at that movie and looking at this book, I feel like that also helped me not be as surprised in terms of like how competitive it was. This is obviously something where it's not a team sport, but they're trying to work together, have chemistry together, while also at the same time trying to elevate themselves so that they are put in more prominent positions. Um, So even though I don't have like any personal experience, I can't dance for shit. So ballet would never be my thing. I could definitely see it as a very competitive, um, form of art where, you know, how do you try to support and uplift everyone while also still trying to make yourself put in more prominent positions?
Mm, Yeah, I think I walked away from the book knowing just a little bit more about ballet, but like not enough to really do anything with. I already forgot the hierarchy, the sujets, the étoiles, things like that. But I guess I could understand um, just how much more cutthroat ballet is. I guess I understood it a bit, considering Black Swan and stuff. But yeah, more cutthroat than I could think of. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, I agree. I had a very limited understanding of ballet before this book, but I do think it gave me a pretty comprehensive understanding. I mean, the first few chapters like really drill into you like each role's part in the ballet and what they do, what kind of roles they're eligible for, and then just how the hierarchy works, and then also how quickly someone can move between each position. Um, so yeah, I mean, it obviously cannot show us ballet 'cause it's a book, but for a book, I think I got a very comprehensive understanding. Um, and then I have another question as well. I read many reviews that complain about the book's pacing and say that it's just way too slow. What do you guys think of that? Do you agree with that or do you disagree with that statement?
I think for the most part, I agree with it. I know we've already noted a couple times, but definitely there were some parts in the middle that were just kind of like I don't want to say drag, but it was not like um, as much of like an engaging part, I guess, as I wanted sometimes. But for the most part, yeah, I do think it was a little bit slow at times.
Yeah, I agree. I think the middle definitely was slow, had some parts that were, I feel like, sort of unnecessary, or at least not progressing the plot along. Um, I'm trying to think, um, like what parts I would remove. None come to mind. Um, I don't know. I feel like as I was listening to the book, there were moments I'm just like, okay, well, what are we doing? And to like, wow, like this book is still going. Because it was like 12 hours on Audible. Um, so it definitely could have been shortened a little bit. But I can't think of like what specifically I would take out or change.
Okay, I feel like the sagging or lagging kind of happened with Josephine because she was such a prominent character for Laura, and then she just kind of got phased out once they started focusing on the love interest. Um, because her death didn't amount as much as I thought it would, given how much focus Laura was giving it. It did serve the purpose of it really highlighting how expendable and forgettable and replaceable you are in the ballet world. But yeah, that was really all her death amounted to. I guess that was all her death really was, maybe, but I expected more. I'm in the minority when I say I love the romantic subplot. I eat romance up every time. But when they did start focusing on it, I think that's when things started to slow down. I feel like they could have weaved it in better. I'm not entirely sure how as well, but like the entire garden moments where she just escaped him, I wish that those types of moments happened more organically, I guess you could say. But other than that, uh, yeah.
I believe you wanted to share, Devonte?
Yeah. So I was thinking, actually, something came to mind in terms of the pacing. I feel like the whole subplot with her parents, like I definitely understand trying to, reinforce the fact that like, yeah, her parents don't love her or that, she was abandoned, when she was younger. But then it's like the moments when she's meeting her dad and talking to him, and then it feels like it kind of went nowhere. And then it's kind of just like, okay, well, why are we introducing him as a character, or why if we're not going to actually have like the full reunification or do something with it. So I think that would be an example of something I would have like taken out or just not put as much attention to.
Yeah, I agree with you all in some way. I actually do not mind a slow burn horror or slow burn thriller. So this book didn't feel slow to me. But I do agree that there are some parts in the middle that felt a bit unnecessary. I think I mentioned it before, but essentially all of the Andor stuff could have been removed, and I would have been fine with that. And it would have raised the book's rating for me. Um, I just feel like all of those moments just kind of slow everything down. But outside of that, the book's pacing for me was fine. Um, and I want to go back to something that Michael said earlier. Why do you believe that ballet was so important to Lore? And the second part to that question, why was it so important that Lore dance at the Paris Ballet Company as opposed to dancing somewhere else?
Yeah, I think sorry, I think her dancing and ballet was important just because I think for her this was her identity. I think this was her way of showing that no, I am worthy. I'm as a human being and worthy to be loved. No, she didn't get it from her parents, and basically feels orphaned. So I think by having something that she's good at, kind of reminding or showing herself that yeah, no, like you do belong, um, and deserve to be loved and admired by other people.
You're unmuted, Arian. Did you want to share next? Okay, then I guess you can go, Michael.
I can go, but I don't.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask what the question was.
Um, Why do you think that ballet was so important to Lore, and why do you think that it was so important to Lore that she danced at the Paris Ballet Company as opposed to anywhere else?
Um, I can say that I don't know that I have a good answer for this. I mean, there's like the obvious piece of like wanting to be successful in a space that is actively trying to reject you. But even then, I don't want to say I was like disappointed, and maybe because it's set in Paris, this is the case. But there actually wasn't as much discussion on like the racial aspect as I thought there would be. Um, but I don't know, like it seems like it is taking like so much out of her, and there's so many barriers. And, like I understand wanting to overcome them, and I don't know, maybe this is just like me projecting like things in my real life where I'm just like tired of some specific things. But I don't know, I just kind of like why are you keep trying to do this if like you have to always work twice as hard and still only get what you should like a tenth of the time. Um, so I don't know. That part was a little bit confusing for me.
Okay. I feel like it stemmed from the fact that she started the ballet journey with her parents. I'm not sure if I'm recalling it correctly, but there's a line saying that like her father or her mother, um, she started the ballet lessons with them. I know the line about her father not showing up to recitals and stuff, but yeah, I think why the Paris Ballets was just the epitome of ballet for her, like the prestige and all that. Um, and I guess maybe part of it was due to Coralie, since she was so convinced of and dedicated to Coralie, I guess you could say, that she didn't really want to leave her, but she didn't really want to leave for her as well. So I'm not entirely sure as well.
Yeah, I think I can only think of two primary reasons why ballet was so important to Laura. It seems as if because it was so important to her father does say at some point early on that your mother has always loved the ballet. So I think she's doing it to try to prove to her mother that, okay, I'm good enough. You know, what you love loves me. So why can't you love me? That sort of thing. And I think she wants to be in the Paris Ballet Company so much because of, like Arian said, the prestige. They have such a high standing in the ballet world that it would really look good for her to be a part of their company. And I'm also wondering, maybe on some level, she thinks that if she becomes an étoile in the Paris Ballet Company, maybe her mother will come back to Paris. So there's that. And my next question is, what did you initially think of the friendship between Laura and Coralie? What did you think their dynamic was?
Yeah, from the beginning, I got the sense of like, no, Laura was actually like her friend. She tried to always try to defend her when people were talking crap about her, and then when you realize that no, Curly is actually talking crap about you behind your back, that part actually really pissed me off. And actually did give me some sympathy for Laura. Um, I kind of feel like I would be interested to kind of see their friendship in the beginning. Like it feels like later on, especially when Laura offers to buy her something, you kind of see like, oh no, Coralie actually really just wants to help her because she is like the pity party and this makes her look good. She's helping the less fortunate, whereas, Laura genuinely is trying, you know, they're in this together and she has always been there to help her, as a friend. So I feel like they just had two different definitions of what a friend was or had different intentions in terms of their relationship.
At first, it seemed to me like, the sort of classic like outsiders bonding together, like, Laura is there and there's not really anyone like her there, and then like Corley's there, but people question, is it just because of her mother, so they're not sort of like in the same boat necessarily as a lot of the other dancers. But I don't know, I mean, like, man, as the book went on, I was just like, this is not a healthy dynamic at all, obviously. Not good for each other, but at first I appreciated it.
You're unmuted, Arian. Did you want to speak? I'm not sure if you are speaking, but we can't hear you, or possibly you can't hear us. Can you hear us? Yeah, no, I couldn't hear anything. Okay, let's continue. Initially, the friendship between Coralie and Lore, I knew off the bat it was going to be toxic. Just kind of the way that Coralie can see that her other friend group with Olivia and Vanessa and the other ballet students don't like Lore, yet she continuously hangs out with them. That to me is off the bat a bad friend. And then, of course, as the story progresses, we learn that, yes, the other kids are talking about Lore behind her back, but they're all saying things that was fed to them by Coralie. So this entire time behind Lore's back, Coralie has been spreading details about her life that can later be used against her amongst the other students. I believe it was you, Michael, who mentioned wanting to get more moments of them when they were younger. Maybe they had a more pure friendship at some point. I agree, and I'm curious. When they were younger, did Laura ever see a genuine friendship with Coralie, or was she just using her as a place to stay? Because around the time that Laura decides to dedicate herself to ballet, she leaves her father's house with nowhere to go. And then you have this like rich girl who likes you and is going to take you in. Are you her friend for that reason, or are you her friend because you actually like her? That was my concern. Um, but yeah, their friendship gave a lot of codependency. And I think that's something that we see most often amongst female friendships. Um, and I'm not sure if anyone is familiar with this movie, but like their friendship definitely gave me Jennifer's Body. That sort of dynamic there. Um, okay. And Arian's back. I'm not sure if you can speak, but if you can, do you want to share?
Testing? Could you
Yeah,
guys
you're
hear
good.
me?
You're
Okay,
good.
cool. Could you repeat the question again? I'm sorry.
What did you initially think of the friendship between Laura and Coralie?
Um, it felt iffy from the get-go. But I was hoping that maybe that was just me projecting, and maybe they were really gal pals, really best friends. I really did like how they injected envy in the friendship. It's something that I really experience, that I really like connect with. So when Laura was feeling all the envy and all the kind of resentment towards Coralie, despite the disconnect, despite Coralie always um, kind of supporting her. It felt nice to read. Um, since we noticed the kind of disconnect and uh, kind of off vibes, and of course Laura would notice it too. I guess she definitely did notice it, if not consciously, then unconsciously. She felt the vibes that were kind of off. Uh, yeah, I really liked their dynamic. Uh, I've been meaning to watch Jennifer's Body, so I can't really comment on that. But yeah, I love the kind of. Did they have a romantic twinge? I felt like they kind of hinted at that, but I think it was cute, despite all the killing and resentment and stuff.
And that was actually my next question. Do you believe that Coralie and Laura's feelings for each other went anywhere beyond platonic friendship, or were they just friends the entire story?
I guess I'll answer first since I already did kind of start on it in my last answer. I think um, Lore might have felt something for Coralie, like maybe one sided, and it was in the past. I don't think anything actually developed from it. It was just the small, maybe kind of crush or stint, magnified by her, um, her gratitude, I guess you could say, to Coralie. But I don't think it went anywhere near the heights she had with her ex, Sabine. I think that was her name. Yeah, I think if anything, it was just one sided, kept secret, but nothing too intense or too long lasting.
I kind of think they did too, just because there were so many times when they didn't really need to, but like Laura for sure, quite a few times was like trying to make plans or hold places for Coralie in a way that felt like more than just friendship to me.
Yeah, I feel like listening to it, um, I do think Laura tried to make time for Coralie until like the end when she, started to try to avoid her. But I kind of feel like she had more admiration for everyone else in the book. Like the way she talked about like Sabine or even Josephine. Like you could tell like she really liked, different aspects about her. I think some of the times when she kind of some positive things about Coralie was just more so like, okay, well, this is my friend, so this is how I'm supposed to support her. Like, yeah, no, she's not a really good dancer, but I have to support her versus like Sabine or Josephine, she's able to kind of say like, no, they are beautiful, they are really good at what they do. So, and for or it's kind of easy to kind of see like her admiration for those other people. I didn't really pick up on her having the same type of admiration or praise for Coralie, other than her being her friend.
Yeah, I agree that the romantic feelings are definitely there, but I do believe they're there on both sides, not just on Laura's side. Um, I think to go along with Devonte's point, That's made most obvious to me when compared to Laura's previous relationships. Like she says, her only real attraction to Sabine was hoping that Sabine's power and talent could rub off on her if they were in a relationship. Um, Yet she stands to really gain nothing from Coralie because she's a better dancer than Coralie. Even without Acheron, she's been a better dancer than Coralie. Um, so I think that really drives that point home. And then from Coralie's perspective, also Laura continuously calls Coralie beautiful. And then from Coralie's perspective, she tries to monopolize all of Laura's time and becomes increasingly jealous the more time Laura spends out without her. And then like suspicious of who she's with and like why can't I come and why them and not me. That to me is it's obviously a symptom of a codependent friendship, but that goes far beyond just a platonic friendship, in my opinion. I think when you start to become possessive of your friends, there's something deeper there that you can acknowledge. So I do believe that it's there. And then even as Laura kills Coralie, she says, "I just killed my first love." Um, so I don't know. I read that as romantic love, not platonic love, but maybe that's just me. Okay, next question. Do you think this book makes any commentary on the white savior complex? And then a second part to that question, would you consider Coralie to be a white savior?
I can go. I don't know that I picked up on any like intentional or really clear commentary on a savior complex, but I definitely did sort of see like Coralie and her mother in that realm a little bit at times. Almost like I don't know, just I don't want to say looking down on Laura, but I feel like Laura always knew that a lot of what happened was because of the two of them, and they knew that too, and it was just kind of like an undercurrent of some interactions in the book, maybe.
I feel like it's a tricky question just because part of me kind of feels like they try to do like a white savior thing. Obviously Laura doesn't have any she doesn't have a place to go. Um, and by giving her food, by helping her buy clothes, getting her things that she needs, having that codependent relationship, it really can give Coralie like this image of like, yeah, like I'm doing like charity work. Um, but then also at the same time, yeah, maybe in the same way that Coralie is able to survive in ballet off of her mom, was Laura also trying to do the same thing, and just trying to, well, if I get close enough to Coralie and she sees how great of a friend I am to her, then maybe she'll also start giving me different opportunities. Um, so for me, it's kind of hard to answer that question.
I'm not sure if I'd consider it a white savior complex. I did question if that was what the author was going for when they were making the story. But when she turned on Lore after it didn't serve her anymore, or when Lore began to surpass her, that was kind of iffy. I think she needed the dynamic of her always being on the top and being needed. Um, yeah, and maybe she was doing it to conceal her contempt for Lore. I'm not sure, but I did pick up on the possibility of that. But yeah.
Yeah, I think I disagree with you guys. I definitely do believe the author is intentionally trying to make a commentary on the lightsaber complex, and I also would consider Coralie as well as her whole family really as white saviors. Um, I'm reminded so much of that moment after Lore's final show. Um, she is a star of the show, yet backstage everyone ignores her until Rosemarie pulls her along with her to introduce her to her husband's business partner. And what Rosemarie says is, I plucked this girl essentially from the ghetto of homelessness. I, gave her classes, fed her, bathed her, clothed her, and she was an orphan. And even though Lore knows, like, Lore and Rosemarie both know that none of that is true, but that story benefits Rosemarie because it makes her look better. And then the business partner's response to that is, instead of congratulating Laura for how far she's come, if she's an orphan who was homeless and blah, 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 he turns around and congratulates Rosemarie for all the beautiful work she's done to save this girl. And like that is like exactly how the white saber complex works, right? And then with Coralie involved in it as well, there is that moment where Coralie wants Laura to move schools, and Laura refuses. And Coralie is like, well, you need me. I'm the reason you have this. I'm the reason you have that. No one likes you. You don't have any other friends. All of that is definitely Saber complex. Because Coralie is convinced there is no way that Laura would have even gotten into the company or into the dance school without her help, regardless of how talented she may be. Without my white help, you wouldn't have got here. So that's definitely in there for me. And my next question is, why do you think that Acheron chose to give favor to Lore, but not to Coralie?
Um, I'll just say that I don't see Coralie as having as much ambition or discipline. And that I don't want to say could kind of just be like whatever, but I don't know that she would pursue her goals in quite the same way that Laura would, and that would be a maybe a deciding factor for Acheron.
Yeah, I agree with Michael. Um, I don't know. I kind of feel like Laura is more intrinsically motivated, and this leads to her being more ambitious. Like this is dancing is her life. This is what she's good at. This is I don't know. Part of me does feel like she is motivated by her parents, obviously wanting her mother to give her that love and appreciation. But I feel like it almost feels kind of different from the way that Coralie kind of needs the motivation from her mom. Just because like yeah, she's not really trying harder to practice dancing as hard as Slower or like other dancers are. She has consistently been, basically at the bottom or just a French dancer who only gets by because of her mom. Whereas Laura has like the discipline and the ambition to practice multiple hours, all day if she needed to, I'm sure. So I think that's kind of like the difference between the two of them.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because in the start, they really established that there was this hunger inside of Laura, um, that she was always hungry and aching for more, striving for more. And I think it really came down to like the purity of her goal, if that makes sense, her drive. She just really wanted to get better, um, achieve the best stardom of power. Whereas Coralie, I feel like her intentions were much more muddy. Um, was it to put Laura in her place? Was it for power? Was it just to make themselves even? Um, Curiosity? Not sure. It might have also been because she wasn't chosen by one of Acheron's subjects. Because you saw how Laura was invited by Josephine, whereas, Coralie wasn't. So maybe it has to do with that. Uh, I'm not sure, but I guess I'd go with the intensity of their passion and ambition as well.
Yeah, I agree with Arian. I know that in a lot of different cultures and those who practice witchcraft, they believe that in order to gain the favor of an eldritch god or of a deity, you must show an extreme devotion to them as well as an extreme sacrifice, or at least a willingness to sacrifice. I think that is what separates Laura from Coralie. Laura has devoted her entire childhood to ballet to the point to where she says, if I don't get into the company, I literally will die. While everyone else who was there at the party had other backup plans, Laura did not. And what was the other one? Sacrifice. Laura sacrificed a lot, and she's willing to sacrifice more and give up her entire body just for the chance to dance. And I think that is what got Acheron's attention. Whereas Coralie, she has never devoted herself to anything but herself, which is obvious because Laura consistently calls Coralie selfish. Um, so I think Acheron didn't like that. Plus, Coralie's never had to sacrifice because she's grown up so privileged and rich. So I don't think she would have been a good match for Acheron anyway, even if someone did take her the same way that someone took Laura. Um, and I guess a follow up to that question is, do you think that Acheron is evil by nature?
I kind of feel like I'm, I, I guess when we're looking at the power being used, I guess it's more so, is this coming from the person that's yielding it, or from Akron himself? Like when Laura broke her legs, was that Akron doing that, or was it just like, I just want you to feel pain, and so like Laura calls her to break her leg, like does she imagine her breaking her leg, and that's what caused it? I think if I had that distinction, I can give a better answer. But I guess in terms of, he doesn't make people do anything that they don't necessarily want to do or already have the desire to do. So I feel like to a certain extent, I don't think it would be fair to say he, if anything, is the only one that is evil in the situation.
I'm actually going to disagree. I think that anyone or anything that explicitly deals in power or puts people in situations where they know that they're going to do immoral or unethical things in pursuit of that power is evil by nature, and Akron definitely fits that definition.
That's interesting. I never really thought of it that way. I'm not sure if I consider him as evil though. Like Devonte said, is it really Akron, or is it really the person just is it really them and their desires? The thing is, I'm not sure if I consider him anything moral, because I think as a deity, he operates outside of our human understanding or something like that. I don't know. But that's kind of what I thought. Like, as long as it serves him, he's fine. And, you know, that might um, that might mean that some good would come out of making a deal with him and some bad. I could see it going both ways. He's just neutral for me, I guess.
Yeah, I would say that along with Arian, I believe that Acheron is neutral. I don't think that Acheron is evil by far. I think everything that Lord does while she has the power of Acheron, they are things that she really wanted to do. Like in that moment, she wanted to fracture Olivia's clavicle. And the other moment, she wanted to break Flora's leg. So Acheron let her do it. Um, Also, I think Acheron can't be evil because Acheron's powers are limited to just the physical. I think if he gave her mind control, then I would probably say yes, he is evil. But I think there's a reason why he limits his powers to just physical control, not mind control. Um, Also, he doesn't have a desire to take over lore like Leith does with Coralie, which is why I think that Leith is the evil deity in this story as opposed to Acheron. Also, Acheron only seems to want people who he knows he could help, like people in great suffering. So I don't know. I don't see that as being evil. I see it more as being neutral. It can be used for evil, but I don't think that Acheron on his own is evil by nature. Now, were you able to understand the rules of Acheron and how exactly striking a deal with him works? Or was that confusing to you?
Um, I don't think I necessarily understood. I just definitely got like the like, oh, like something needs to be like sacrificed in order to get something back in order to make a deal. But um, I don't know. Beyond that, I'm not too sure.
Yeah, I'm also not sure entirely how it works.
The way I saw it, it was just like a sacrifice for the deal, time limit, um, and then uh, the the amount you need to sacrifice was never really specified, and it was kind of muddied. But yeah, it was kind of like a monkey's paw in a way, but not entirely, because you did have the people start to shift and become more monstrous the more they relied on their power and the more they utilized it, which I'm pretty sure that they didn't know beforehand that that would happen to them. So, yeah.
Yeah, while I don't think it was explicitly given to us at any point, I was able to piece together how I think the deals work throughout the story. It seems as if, like someone said it earlier, I'm not sure who, it's really all a balancing act. Whatever favor you want, it has to balance somehow. If it balances from you or from someone else, and you have to just kind of deal with that. Um, but I am a bit confused on Acheron's deal with Keturah, because we know that with Andor, he wanted beauty and he wanted to be able to give life to plants. So it makes sense that his balancing act would be being a hideous monster for his beauty and being able to give life to plants, but being able to poison human beings. That all makes sense. Uh, but what didn't make sense about Katura was she wanted to feel no negative emotions. I'm curious how that's going to balance out. Does that mean that she also can feel no pleasurable emotions? Or does that mean that other people around her feel negative emotions more extremely? That wasn't really made clear to me. Did anybody gather that? How Katura's deal works?
I, for some reason, thought that she couldn't feel any emotions, but if it is even only negative emotions, isn't there some catch in like never feeling like shame or grief or anything like that? Is that kind of like a punishment in itself, or not a punishment, a sacrifice, or whatever we want to call it in the terms of the deal?
That's a really good point. I wasn't able to pick up whether or not she had no emotions. That was what I thought originally, but then she says that since losing the negative stuff, she's been able to feel confident, at peace. And I'm like, well, those are emotions. So you must be able to feel something. But I am just curious when the other shoe is going to drop with her deal and like she may start to regret it. Um, okay. Now, it's mentioned at several points in the book by Coralie that Lore stole her spot in the company. Do you believe Lore actually stole it?
I don't think she did. I feel like it's denial, because I think everyone else could see that Coralie is just not that girl. She can't really. I don't want to say she can't dance, but she's not the best dancer in the class, and so I think she kind of sees like, okay, well, I have to blame someone if I can't blame myself. And maybe there is like a sense of feeling, well, I'm doing all of these great things for you, so then you should pay me back by giving me your spot, or because I'm doing so many great things and trying to save your life and give you a place to stay, therefore I should be in a much better position than you, while also not putting in the work to dance herself to that position.
I don't know if I would say that anything was necessarily taken, but I definitely think Coralie feels entitled to it. I don't know if she could actually earn it, but I think at some level she does feel entitled to it.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because in that one scene, I think it was audition, Laura was picking her apart. And I trust Laura's, assessment because she was on the top of their class and stuff. And she even fell. So it's like, yikes. And they did mention several times in the story, I think, how she had to repeat a year and that she was only getting by because of her mother. So I don't think Laura stole anything.
Yeah, I don't believe that Laura stole anything either. I just think that Coralie was just jealous and lashing out at Lore. In the beginning of the book, the company says they have 6 spots, yet they only accept 5, which meant there was another spot for Coralie. It's just she wasn't good enough to get it. So instead of taking 6, they only took 5 who were worthy. And then I guess the second part to that question is, why was it so important that Coralie took Laura's spot? There are 4 other people who she is by no means as close with as Laura, whose spot she could have easily taken, even without killing them. So why Laura? Did you get that?
I kind of wonder how much the other girls influenced this. Um, there's always like this sense of like, um, the other girls in the class, you know, I kind of feel like pitting them against each other. Like they would talk about each other, or talk about the two of them behind each other's backs. Whereas Laura would actually tried to stand up for Coralie, and Coralie would actually just join in. Um, and again, I think also part of it kind of goes back to like again, I'm doing so much for you. I am trying to uplift you and support you. So therefore, you should give me your spot because I am a better person than you. Um, from the sense of Coralie, that's why, yeah, I can't love this black girl that has nothing be seen as a better dancer than me in front of my famous mom. But I don't know. That's just my thought.
Um, I mean, honestly, I think part of it is just because like Corley's a little bit of a hater, but also I think that she feels entitled to Laura's spot. Just because she doesn't think Laura could get anything without their involvement, which I guess at some level is true in this case.
Yeah, not much to say. I agree, pretty much.
Yeah, I I think uh Coralie wanted Laura's spot so much because she again wanted to remain as her white savior. She always needs to have Laura be dependent upon and submissive to her. Whereas when Laura got the role and Coralie did not, she slowly began to take care of Coralie. And that is not going to work with Coralie's white savior fantasy, right? So she has to then put her back in her place, so to speak. Um, but it's just odd that that is someone who you consider to be a best friend and you consider you're just looking out for her because she's not ready to dance in a big ballet company, but you're going to ruin her for all other companies too. That was like, okay, this is definitely not someone who was your friend and probably never was. But now let's move on to why do you think Laura only began to physically transform after she hurt Olivia and not previously when she used her powers?
I feel like that was one of the first times when she really understood like the full extent that the power had. So maybe in a sense, like now that she's shifting forms, like because the power is starting to consume her, she is just growing more knowledgeable in terms of how she can further elevate within the company. Um, so yeah, yeah, I just think when she kind of knew more about it, she just got more consumed with the power, and then that kind of started to shift her.
Yeah, I think I agree. I kind of took it as a like moment of lore better understanding like what she could really get from Acheron's mark, and I don't even want to say having like more control, but like a new like revelation on how she can feed into it.
Yeah, I think it was more so because that was the first time that she used her power to physically hurt someone. So the balancing act has to come back. Now, since you physically hurt someone, something about your physicality has to change. Um, that's all that I kind of got. I guess I could see what you two were saying about the more she understands her power, the more she transforms. But even throughout the story, she doesn't really take on any new traits outside of the nails and the eye color changing, while she continuously hurts people physically. I was thinking she's going to slowly turn into Andor's demon figure too, but I don't know. I guess that was not the author's plan. Now, while we're on the topic of Andor, what did you think about the romance between Laura and Andor?
I guess I'll go first since I think I was the only one who actually who really digged it. Um, when Lore first noticed him in the bleachers or in the audience, I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. Why do I feel a hint of the romantic subplot? And then, you know, my smug little self, when it actually came to fruition, I digged it. I really liked um, how's like longing glances and gazes at first. Um, you know, I like how Lore. Okay, listen, hear me out. I like how Lore accepted even the monster version of him because it would feel shallow if she didn't. It wouldn't really feel whole. So that was nice. Monster fucker Lore. Love to see it. And their whole dynamic was kind of I'm not sure who said it earlier, but it was like walking them on a leash, the sub and dom kind of dynamic. Yeah, that was. I'm not entirely sure if I would have kept that in if I had a choice, but but with Laura's whole thing being power, I think Andor submitting to her really just endeared Laura all the more to him. So it was important in that aspect. But I wouldn't really say it had. I wouldn't really prefer it that way. Um, I feel like Andor's story really was just a love interest. You could have had the other side characters support. You could have had the other side characters support her all the same uh, without him necessarily being a love interest. It could have just been entirely platonic. But I loved it regardless. Mm, yeah.
Um, I don't know that I have like any really strong thoughts to add to this one. Um, other than I mean what we've already said, which is like this was a big part of the story that was slower for me too. Um, and I think there probably is some part of it too where I at times it almost felt like Lore was motivated just by the fact that like he's poisonous and oh, it's like dangerous and it's a rush and like I could be like a little bit at risk. And that for some parts of it was like maybe the only reason that she was engaging, just for like that little bit of thrill. But not really any thoughts other than that from me.
Yeah, I also didn't have any thoughts about the relationship. I don't know. I feel like in the beginning, kind of served the purpose of, okay, well, I need context or need understanding in terms of how Aquapon works, and I think he kind of gave her that. Um, I think even from the beginning, I think I actually got kind of confused because I thought he was actually like on the panel of the guest, but I don't know. Um, so when he kind of showed up, it was just like out of nowhere of like, oh no, this is actually like a well, no, that's just not that surprising. But um, I think from the beginning, I didn't know exactly what his role was going to be, um, and so for him to be the love interest, yeah, I mean, I feel like it was fine, but um, yeah, I don't have any strong feelings about it.
I actually did like the romance between Laura and Andor. I mean, Andor is totally my type, and I love the dynamic between uh, like, uh, as like submissive woman and like dominant woman and submissive man in a book. I think it's a bit out of the ordinary, so it's always fun to read. Um, so I enjoyed it. I do feel like I said earlier, it slowed down the horror elements for me a bit too much. I was reading it primarily for the horror stuff, not for the love stuff. So, you know. Um, and it's funny, I don't remember who said it, possibly you, Arian, um, with uh, Andor wanting to worship Lore. That reminds me of Sabine and Laura's relationship. Laura says she only was with her because she wanted some of her greatness to rub off on her, and Sabine was with her because she wanted someone to admire her. So I'm curious, you know, how long will it be before they're in that phase too, where they both realize what they're doing and how selfish the other person is? Um, and then the relationship falls apart. But, you know, okay. Um, What did you think of the book's element of found family? And do you think it was intentional for the author to make a commentary on found family in the queer community?
I actually feel like it was a good element now that I think about it. Looking at it from the sense of like Laura at the end, no one is um, Andor and Katura at the end, and then they're picking up the new girl. Um, they're misfits. They're struggling. They can empathize with each other and really actually like support and uplift each other. In contrast to what Laura probably thought was her initial found family with Coralie and Rosemary, and realizing like, oh no, they actually don't give a crap about me. So I think for her to actually realize like, yeah, maybe my family abandoned me. Maybe the people I thought cared about me didn't really care about me, but I still have been able to find people that really genuinely do care and are there to, pick me up when I almost die. Um, and I think, especially in the queer community, I think that's very important just because, yeah, we're not always supported or loved by the people that we feel like should give us that love and support.
I was just going to say that I don't know the outside of what Devontae showed. I got too much of it, but there was just a tiny bit of like a family-esque aspect just to the whole like ballet thing in general of being in this space where really no one gets it except for this small group of people. But I mean, the part that really stood out here is what Devontae meant towards the end to me.
I think that found family came up a lot in this book. I look at the relationship between Coralie and Laura's children. I look at the relationship between Coralie and the ballet company. Her thinking that that's going to be her family. Um, the relationship between Laura and her new friend group with Andor and Katura and Ciro and Josephine, and all of that. But my only gripe with the found family in this story is it seems as if, oh, and the found family with Acheron and Laura as well. But my only gripe with it is that it seems as if Laura is always trading one found family for another. And it doesn't seem as if she's learned yet to be independent. And I was kind of hoping by the end we would get her to a place of independence, but we still have not. So I don't know. I'm not saying that obviously people don't need anyone. I'm just trying to say that I think it's important for a character who has a history of jumping from family to family to realize what you're looking for, you probably already have within yourself. But yeah. Now, before the killer was revealed, who did you think the killer was?
I I thought it was the mom because everything was pointing towards her, and I was connecting. Laura was there connecting the pieces, the dots and stuff. Because I didn't think it could be Coraline. I I don't think she had it in her, but apparently she did. So yeah.
Yeah, I also thought it was the mom, just because um, it was a really good red herring. But I also kind of feel like, oh well, that would explain how she stays in her position of power. Um, Whereas Rosemary using power seemed unbelievable because like she still can't dance, she's still in the same low position. Um, so it's just like I didn't see evidence that she was using the power. Um, so yeah.
Um, I don't. I leaned towards the mom, but didn't want to believe it. Um, I'm not. I'm not entirely sure why, but um, no. Like I kind of. I guess I got tricked too.
I lean toward the mom a bit as well. It's mentioned in one of like Laura's first encounters with Rosemary that there's always this cold air around her, and then later in the book, every time something mischievous is going to happen, Laura can feel a gust of cold air, right? So I assumed that was Rosemary doing all these things, but it also didn't really make sense to me for her to be the killer, and then of course to have it be revealed so early on. I was just thinking like someone else has to be it because that's just too early to reveal a killer in a book. Um, I was more landing on President Auger. We know that Josephine was blackmailing her. We don't know with what, but if that blackmail allowed Josephine to be the first ballerina to make étoile in over 10 years, it must be something pretty serious. And then she would, of course, attempt to kill Zero as well because Zero probably knew. Um, but yeah, I didn't really think it would be Corley. But then, like, towards the end, sure, it makes sense. You know, these two battling friendships, of course, they would have deals with battling deities, right? So why not? Um, what did you think of Laura's decision to quit the ballet company in the end?
I mean, I thought it was good. I still never like fully understood some of the motivation because it just seemed like she's so miserable so much of the time. Um, so I was glad. I'm also glad that she didn't literally die like she said she was going to. So
Yeah, no, I think she could have made the book 100 times shorter. She was just came to realization earlier. Um, it's coming to like Michael's point earlier in terms of not being sure what was the importance of it being here in Paris, like where racially she would not have much of a chance. And yeah, maybe that also like drove the ambition, but then also just kind of realizing like really really like dance, and that's what your sole motivation is. Then yeah, you can go other places to find other opportunities where you can do what you love. Um, but I think at the end, her being able to step away from it, um, I think it kind of just shows her growing as a person. Um,
Yeah, no, I agree that her stepping away showed the growth of her character. Um, and I liked how in the end, when Couture was showing her the club, that there were other avenues that you know, she could do to use her ballet skills and her love for the art form in ways that don't necessarily have to be a competition or in you know, the actual ballet scene itself. Uh, yeah,
Yeah, I was happy when Laura made the decision to quit. I think for a long time she was, again, looking for a sense of family with the ballet company. And I think towards the end, she finally realized with the offer letter that she received from President Auger that at the very best here, all I will ever be is a temporary dancer. You have no interest in having me long term. And I think that is kind of the straw that broke the camel's back for her. Um, and also, I think she didn't feel the need to be a part of that little quote unquote family anymore since she had Katura and Acheron, who told her, even without your gifts, we would still let you in. We wouldn't like kick you out of our group if you lost Acheron's favor, which based on the way that the ballet has treated Josephine and the other dancer, Sophia Polaine, once they lose their ability to dance, they're worthless to them, like literally throwing out all of their stuff the moment after Josephine died. And I think that was the connecting moment for Laura to say, even if I was a part of this family, this is not the kind of family I would want to be a part of. So that gave her the strength to quit. Now, what do we think of Laura's final confrontation with her father?
The last mention I remember of him was when he bought a ticket to come to the show. Um, I mean, I feel like if I was in her shoes, um, I don't know, it just feels kind of late to me. Like certainly, I this is what I wanted my whole life was for you to come to one of my recitals. But now that it's happening now, once I'm actually starting to get famous, it's I don't know, it feels too late. Um, I don't know if the book explicitly kind of said like what her thoughts were about that interaction, but if I was in her shoes, that would have been mine.
Yeah, I was trying to remember what the last interaction between them was, but that um, if that's it, when he shows up to see her, I don't know, just it felt. I don't know if there's like maybe some commentary there on the family thing that I'm trying to piece together, but um, it did feel like a little bit too late, or like I don't know. I guess I'm not finding that I'm looking for as I'm trying to talk it out.
Do you have any thoughts on that, Arian?
Mm, no, I don't think so.
I actually like that final confrontation. Him making an attempt to be there for her after all these years. Of course, it's a little bit too late, but uh, or it could be seen that way. I'm not sure if I believe it's ever really too late to fix a relationship if you're if you're being genuine about your desire to fix it. Um, but I liked it. But I also like how Laura didn't just like in that second forgive him for years and years of abandonment. She said like, nice try, but like first of all, you buy tickets online, not in person, and second of all, I'm not dancing anyway. Um, but let's chat later, right? I like that. And I liked in the epilogue how she's budding a relationship with her father now. And we're shown that it is a slow process to try to rekindle a relationship with someone who abandoned you for so many years. I think oftentimes in books like this, the author makes it seem as if like there's just some magical conversation that can be had to fix, childhood trauma and childhood abandonment, and that's just not the case. So I really appreciate this author's like uh, intentional slow burn of their new relationship. Now, we've already talked about Acheron being evil. Um, do you believe that Lore by nature is evil or a bad person?
I don't. I think she is just a little bit traumatized and is trying to deal with it in the ways that are presenting themselves to her.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think when she got the power, I think it fully was with the intention of just being elevated up in the company and receiving admiration. I don't know that she necessarily wanted power. You know, she wasn't trying to put herself in a position to be the president of the company, which really would have looked absurd. But I think based on the discrimination that she felt and experience, uh, it wasn't like she was seeking out, like, I'm going to go to this girl to break her collarbone just on purpose. Um, it was almost, I don't want to say self defense, because now I feel like I'm justifying her, which was like my biggest issue with her. But um, yeah, I don't think she was inherently evil. Um, I think her circumstances just made her lash out and I guess in violent ways.
I don't think she was evil. When I read the Goodreads reviews, I was surprised that people were thinking her of a villain. Like this was a villain origin story, and that made me have to like reflect on whether or not she was actually, evil or a bad person, kind of. Because I think I might have fell into the trap of, rooting for the MC just because of the MC. But no, I don't think she was a villain. She did some bad things. The collarbone and the leg snapping. But I mean, she's just a girl. um, she did feel guilty about it, if I remember correctly. And she did feel, remorse. Like, oh, is this really Acheron or is this me? Like, this is getting kind of out of hand. So there was that. I do think it was just like her environment causing her to lash out, like um, you guys said earlier. And yeah.
Yeah, I don't think Laura is a villain or a bad person at all. I would argue that at most she's a victim of circumstance. I mean, imagine how mentally sane someone could be after being subjected to years and years of discrimination, right? I don't think very many people would walk away um, super pure, right? So I definitely understand lore. I would categorize lore as more of like what is called an anti-villain, someone who does bad or villainous things, but the reasoning is understandable. Like I understood the desire to want to fracture Olivia's collarbone. I understood the need and desire to break Flora's leg. You know, this is a girl who told you to basically go fetch, little black girl. Like, yeah, I'd break your leg too, if I could. Um, and she also wanted her spot. So, you know, I don't know. I don't feel bad for anyone that Laura hurt, honestly. But that's just me. Now, what do we think of the story's ending? Killing Coralie and all of that kind of stuff.
Weren't you the one that wanted Coralie to die in the group chat? Or not the group chat, the Discord?
Yeah, but I wanted her to die like when I first met her. But yeah.
I think they need to be apart, and they're not good for each other. So, um, they can't be near each other anymore. So that's good, I guess.
Um, the interesting thing as I was listening to it, I was just wondering, like, I feel like when they used their powers before, it was always kind of done in the dark. So no one was actually fully aware of like what was happening. Like no one saw, Laura have like her eyes turning colors or seeing the nails. But I was just like, how are they going to explain this huge fight in this ballet company? Like, are they just going to come back with like memory dust and like make them all forget? I'm not sure that was like explained in the book. Um, you know, because I know they kind of mentioned like, oh, well, people just assume that Laura also died, in this big event at the ballet company. But I'm kind of curious to know like what is the rumor? Like what is the news? How are they reporting this? Huge fight of, basically monsters fighting in the middle of a ballet company in front of other people. So I thought that was kind of interesting. It's something I wonder about. Um, but I feel like overall, like the ending of it was pleasing.
I agree, because like at that point, Coralie has killed like two people. She was gonna kill three with Alderon, but like we all know how that went. So her dying felt felt justified enough, I guess. Like it felt like fine to close it off like that. Mm, and she was actively trying to kill Lore in the process, so it was either her or Lore. And, I had to root for Lore. It was fine. It was. I had no strong positive feelings for Coralie anyway, so.
Yeah, I love the ending. I was just like waiting for Laura to do something to Coralie because I was like, this girl is just going way too far, and you're like allowing it. But I was glad that she killed her in the end. Also, like Arian said, I don't think there was any other way to end the book because regardless of what Laura does, Coralie will always be after her until she's willing to be her little submissive, codependent friend again, right? So you just had to kill her, right? I do have a little bit of sympathy for Coralie because I couldn't imagine having a mother like Rosemary and then being able to have the most healthy relationships with women. You would naturally struggle because what was modeled for you was control. So you're going to always think your female friendships or relationships have to have some sense of control. So there's a bit of sympathy there, but outside of that, I was like, just kill this girl and we could be done. And then I think someone commented on like how would it have been explained. I guess that wasn't really an issue for me. I think the way the whole building falls apart, people are just gonna kind of assume it collapsed. Um, and I think at the end, Laura enchants everyone, so it's not like they have a clear understanding of what happened either. And then everyone believes that Laura's dead anyway. So, except for her father, of course. But so I guess they kind of got away scot free. A bit Deus ex machina, but everyone kind of got off scot free. Um, Now I do have a question that I guess relates more to our life than the book. I'm curious, why do you believe that purposefully exclusive institutions such as ballet, country clubs, blah, 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 why do they still exist today?
Oh, I'll try to give an abridged answer on this. But a lot of these sort of institutions, and I mean, the two you mentioned, ballet and country clubs, of course, revolving essentially around golf and tennis, and ballet being what it is. Um, that for a long time, these things were seen as like status symbols or as good ways to like network among among this like upper middle class or upper class echelon of white people, and those things still exist because people still strive for those, and there are still people alive that at some level I'm sure are like, oh, if I want to get a business deal done, I know I have to like go to the country club and run into this person or whatever. That is still like a real thing that happens every day. So I think that's probably a big part of why. But that's my answer.
Yeah, I agree with what Michael said in terms of yeah, no, it's a place of status and oppression. Um, and I feel like by keeping those in place, it kind of just creates this image of being able to say, well, you're not good enough to be part of the club or to have any power or to have a say. And I feel like when this kind of starts there, it kind of spans, you know, into other communities. So I think that's kind of why, you know, that idea, why those, excuse me, why those communities still exist.
I mean, I don't really have much thoughts on the matter of just that it's really hard to dismantle the kind of um, already laid out thoughts and beliefs, and how the positions of power are usually held by the people with those very same thoughts and beliefs. So it just, you know, it ripples down along, and it makes it difficult for any change to really happen.
Yeah, I agree with all of you. I think those institutions being purposely exclusive benefits those who are already in those spaces. And while those spaces do obviously work to keep poor people and people of color out of them, those are also no, those are most times the same groups of people who rarely have the resources or money to fight back. So there's really no hope of those things changing, I don't think. Okay, and final question before we move on. This book, I think I know the answer, but I'll ask anyway. This book does have a direct sequel. It was written as a duology, so you're meant to read this one and the next together. Would you guys be open to reading the direct sequel, or is just this one enough?
I would be open to it, but I also never say no to any of the books. So I'm not a good barometer for this.
I'd also be open. Yeah.
I'll say whatever. Yeah, I guess I would be open to it. Um, yeah, I'd be open to it.
Okay. It's not even out yet, so we definitely wouldn't read it anytime soon or that. But when it does come out, eventually we will read it. Okay. So that's all I have in my notes for the discussion. Before we move on, does anyone else have any last minute questions, comments, plot lines we missed, characters you want to discuss, anything?
I just had a question for you. It's not really about the book, but you mentioned having like been in some of these spaces before. Did you do ballet?
Oh no, that wasn't what, that wasn't what I meant. I meant like exclusive spaces, like predominantly I'm talking about workplaces. When I worked in kind of corporate America, the desire to have these promotions and raises and then having, from my perspective, having those things taken away from me. That's how I can relate to the book, not in terms of ballet.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyone else? Or can I move on?
You can move on.
Okay. Well, next month is Indigenous Heritage Month, so we will be reading a book that focuses on Indigenous people. I've gone ahead and picked one. I will post the Goodreads link in the chat so that you guys can read the description and let me know what you guys think. Give me just a second. So take a few minutes to read the description and let me know what you guys think.
This sounds interesting.
Yeah, I like this. This sounds fun.
Anything from you, Devontae?
Sorry, I was trying to figure out how to go back from the chat to here. No. It actually sounds very interesting. I also like that the author is actually Indigenous. So it feels kind of more authentic. So I definitely like the book.
Nice. Okay. So I know that November is Thanksgiving if you celebrate. The last Sunday of that month is the 24th. Is that okay, or is that cutting too close to anyone's holiday plans if you have any?
As long as it doesn't overlap with football.
You said with football?
Yeah, that's supposed to be a joke, but none of you
Oh,
laughed.
like, yeah, I don't know what kind of game you're I don't know what kind of.
No, it's fine. The Sunday is fine for me.
Okay. I thought you were joking, but I didn't want to be offensive and saying gays can't like football, so.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it works for me as well.
What about you, Devontae?
I may be in Hawaii, but I'm not sure. But otherwise, I'll make it work and figure it out.
Okay. If that is too close to your vacation, let me know. I'm always willing to switch days. Would you rather it be a week prior, or it's a fairly short book, so if it goes like a week prior, that's fine.
Well, I need to solidify the fact that if we're actually going to Hawaii first, so I don't want to say
Oh, yeah.
make changes now. But and also yeah, I can let you know in the
Okay.
future.
Well, does the 12 p.m. work for everyone? Usual 12 p.m. PST?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. I should warn you guys that This book is not categorized as an erotic fiction, as an erotic novel, like The Emperor and the Endless Palace was, but our main character is a sex worker, so be prepared for like some pretty graphic sexual content. I sampled this book like I do with all of our books, and the first page we jump right into childhood masturbation. So be prepared for that and maybe don't read this book at work. Now, on the topic of holidays, we have December coming up. I kind of want to talk about that a little bit. Um, I know everyone doesn't celebrate Christmas, but if you do, the last Sunday would be, gosh, really close to Christmas. The last Sunday would be the 29th. Oh, right after Christmas. But I do know that for some people who travel for the holidays, that week of Christmas and then week of New Year's is pretty busy. So I have a couple of options. If we want to meet in December, we can. I can make that work. We would meet the third Sunday, which would be the 22nd, and we would read a shorter book and then probably a like holiday festive book. Um, or if we want to take December off, we could meet on the last Sunday in January. So no meeting December. We would meet January 22nd, and we would read a very long book that hopefully should last you about 2 or so months. We have some books on our list that are about 700, 800 pages, so I would choose one of those books. I'm totally fine either way, whatever you guys want to do, but I am not sure when else we would get to these longer books, if not during a 2 month break. Um, I'm not asking anybody to decide now. Obviously, we're like about a month early, but that's where my mind is, and hopefully you can kind of brainstorm that until next meeting. So I guess that's it. Does anyone else have anything last minute they want to say before we go?
Just thank you to all of you as always. I love these. They're a lot of fun. I look forward to them. So thanks for participating, everyone.
Yeah, just a thanks, for coming and for hosting as well. Yeah, appreciate it.
Yeah, and I echo what everyone else said. It's always great having these discussions, and yeah, I hope you guys are all enjoying your weekend. And thank you for hosting, Jonathan.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, well, let me get you guys out of here. I don't want to keep you too long. So yeah, please just think more about what I said at the end of when you want to meet, December or January. Oh, also one last thing I have to share. Book clubs, the website is launching a new feature in an attempt to help rid the site of bots and inactive members. They're kind of beta testing a 3 month inactive feature, which essentially means if you are a part of any club but are not active, in this case, it will be RSVPing to meetings. Uh, for at least 3 months, they will mark your account inactive and you will then lose access to the club. Um, it's still in beta, so I'm not totally sure if it'll be exactly 3 meetings, if it'll be 4 or 5 until you get eliminated, but just know once you do reach a third month of not RSVPing to meetings, your account will lose access to our book club and book clubs. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Okay, well, that's it. You all have a nice day, and I hope to see you at the end of next month to discuss the book. Bye.
See y'all.
Bye, guys.
Bye.